Welcome to Behind the Play, a video and podcast product of the Hoops crew that explores the lives of Geelong players past and present, as well as the off-field figures that are keeping Geelong strong. My name is Paul James. Today I have the great pleasure to be chatting to Rudi Edsall. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, it's lovely to be on.
It's great to have you on board, and as we were discussing just pre-show, very exciting time for you, about a month away from kids, which is, well, it's a huge milestone. But firstly, I guess on behalf of myself, Ben, and everyone watching, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I guess you were kind of saying off, again, prior to starting, that the room is almost set up and ready to go, but these things always feel like they're coming down to the last minute. How are you tracking in that space at the moment?
Because it's twins, we're pretty organised because we've just had to be,
That's fair.
So we feel like we're okay, but then things happen. That's all I can say. Things happen. I'm sure we'll find out a lot in the next however long it takes until they're here.
Yeah, true. It's never a clean and easy process. There's always some surprises that, whether it's just the day it all happens or you've forgotten something or whatever. So hopefully you guys can kind of be the outliers and actually and keep right on top of it in ways that I know myself and my wife weren't, and that I'm sure countless millions haven't been over the journey. I guess when it comes to names, not expecting to name anything, surely there's going to be some sort of a little bit of Geelong flavour to the names.
My partner is a massive Sydney fan, so I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, okay. As long as we don't see Buddy, I guess, for one of them. Then
I think I've got right of veto on some names as well.
Anything involving, he's a past guest of the show. We love him now, but Nick Davis can't have anything that's an allusion to Nick Davis in any way, shape, or form either.
Correct.
Yeah, good. All right, so I guess we've kind of already gotten into a little bit of the lighter stuff, but for you specifically, where did, I guess, the love of footy first begin? Was it very early days? Was it always kind of there? Did you have influential figures within the family that were kind of guiding you towards the game at all, or was it a bit of a slower burn for you?
No, it was very much there from a very young age. I don't really remember not being a footy fan, to be honest. It's just kind of, I mean, you grow up in Melbourne and it's not really escapable, is it? You go, you go to school and it's, you play footy every lunchtime and you're at home and footy's on the TV on the weekend and all that stuff. I was, of course, massively into it at a young age. I've got, some of my youngest memories are going to my grandfather's place and, he'd have his book on the shelf. Scott Palmer's written up the best players of the last 50 years, but in like 1975. So it's got like, Kaji Greaves and Chicken Smallhorn in it and stuff like that. So and I was just a fiend for all that kind of information as a kid. So I was just like absolutely footy mad.
Was it always Geelong from day one? Did you do what some kids do where they kind of fluctuate and eventually land on a club? Or, I mean, again, were there kind of influential figures that were guiding you towards the Cats at all?
Well, I was nominally an Essendon fan because that's my dad's team. But to be honest, it was because back then you'd only have the Saturday night replay on Channel 7. And the Cats would always be on that because Gary Ablett would do just the most insane things that didn't seem physically possible. And I sort of just fell in love with that. I think it was just, he was just like so electrifying to watch. And then a kid named Shane in grade 1 said that he'd only be mates with me if I went for the Cats. So, the deal was sealed.
That's fair. Shane, we owe you a lot. I guess how did such an early age at that point, I'm sure there wasn't too much fuss within the household, but jumping ship like that, did it create a little stir at all?
Oh, no, not really. It was all kind of, it wasn't like a serious footy household. It wasn't like, everyone bundled off to Windy Hill to watch the Bombers on the weekend or anything like that. Mum's a Richmond fan as well. And her dad himself was a Richmond fan, but then, all of her siblings are Carlton. It's kind of, it was just kind of one of those, family, I guess you call it a mixed family.
Yeah, that's all right. And so I guess, you spoke about obviously some of those school experiences and the like where, you couldn't escape it, whether it was at lunchtime, whether it was just conversations about the game, etc. When did you really kind of become like, I guess, footy kind of became part of the identity a little bit? Where was there a point where that really developed, that you wanted to potentially somehow be involved with the game? Now, obviously, you've got journalism accreditation. You're obviously prominent in the media these days. But Yeah, I'm giving you the credit there. I saw the eyebrows, but I'll give you the credit there.
I'll take it.
But I guess, when did any sort of idea that this could be a possibility start to form in your mind?
Well, I'd say it was, I was a footy mad kid, and then not necessarily a footy mad teenager, if that makes sense, and then came back around to it. Well, late in my that period of time where you find, like cans of Woodstock and girls. Footy fell by the wayside on weekends at that point, and I came back around a little, like a touch older. I'm not even really that much older, just probably 20 or something. And then I was 21 when we won the 2007 flag. So it was, it was easy to pick that back up. Not that I hadn't stuck with it or anything like that, but it was pretty easy to watch them every weekend, and just knowing that you're about to watch, almost certainly a really big win and have a good laugh, and come back next week and watch another Gary Ablett do something magic. So, and then at that point I was a bartender. Like I remember exactly where I was. I was in the front bar at the Lower Plenty pub pulling beers the day we beat Richmond by
that
million points in 07. Yeah, I remember that very, very distinctly, where I were and the guy I was with. And sort of from there, it wasn't really on my radar to do anything with it. I was just a guy in his 20s, pouring beers. And then I went and lived overseas for a bit in the 2012-13 year. I came back the day we lost the prelim to Hawthorn in 2013. I'd pushed to come home.
Gone a little bit longer.
Well, I'd pushed to come home early because I thought we were going to play Hawthorn in the grand final, and I wanted to be back for that. It didn't really work out.
Look, I get it. I'd bought into the curse and everything at that point too, so I just thought, okay, prelim, like it's going to be tight. It's going to cause me all sorts of stress and trauma, but we'll get through it. And it damn nearly happened too.
I honestly didn't even consider that we wouldn't play Hawthorn in the grand. It just felt like, fated. It felt like it was in the stars. I didn't even consider that wouldn't happen. I remember another thing. I remember I was doing a bus about trip around Europe. We left the hostel we'd been staying at in Prague at halftime of the qualifying final, and then 8 hours later pulled up in Austria. And I remember checking the score and being like, "We've lost to Freo at Cardinia Park." To this day, I've never seen the game. There's no way I was seeking that out.
Well, no need to rush, but also it's a weird pattern. Freo in Geelong, they seem to have a way with us at home.
Not fans of purple
recently, and they've got a history of it too, with various other finals and random games along the way too. It's look, I'm all for Geelong pushing to try and get a home final, but maybe not if we're playing Freo anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Take them to the G. Take them to the G. Which also, though, to be fair, I think of 2014, 15 when we. Oh no, actually, because we played finals.
It was it 2012 against? There was an elimination final where I'm pretty sure that was at the G. I can't remember.
Yeah, there was one at the G, and they smacked us around. I think maybe 14 because we were out that year, and then the following year missed the finals altogether.
That's right. Yeah. But anyway, to get that was I was overseas. I came back and I remember I was like, I'm going to go to uni and do something in my life. And I remember not really knowing, and my partner at the time, who's not my current partner, she said, "Well, what would you do, like if you didn't have to get paid?" I was like, "Just watch footy, really." And she was like, "Why don't you go and find a sports journalism degree?" So I did that, and I was good at it, and ended up via that getting I started working casual shifts covering footy for Triple M back in the day, just digitally, back when Facebook was all about writing 300-word articles, and you get all your clicks and stuff. It was a really different landscape, and I've been there since. I ended up working full time there, and now still do a similar kind of job, but still digital content as such. But it's just like the whole landscape of it's changed a fair bit. Now I produce footy games as well, the odd podcast and radio show here or there, and that's really my journey. It was just I kind of decided in my mid-20s to go back to uni and have a crack at something that wasn't bartending, and now here I am.
Well, I mean, look, any form of journalism is not necessarily an easy thing to step into straight away. There's got to be the I guess, the natural way with the word to begin with. So you obviously had that from the schooling days. Were you pretty decent when it came to your English classes and those sort of things back in the schooling days? Because I mean, it's all well and good to have this fantastic content knowledge of the game, but to be able to construct a piece when it was still kind of focused a bit more on the written word is not necessarily an easy thing to do.
Oh yeah, I've always had that ability because like, as I sort of mentioned at the top, like it wasn't just like books about footy that I'd read voraciously. It was like literally everything ever.
Yeah.
Like I remember being, looking for new information to take in and like reading, ingredients on cereal packets and stuff like that. I used to, when I was a primary school kid, I used to read the paper cover to cover, which would freak my family out. But I was just like, I loved reading so much. And I think that that's probably why I can write pretty decently these days.
Yeah.
It's just because you just take in so many different types of writing.
Yeah, the styles of writing is vastly different.
It just like embeds into your mind over time, and I think that that's probably why I can muster up the written word pretty well, and I love it. I actually love. I wouldn't say I love the act of writing necessarily. I can find that sometimes that can be very, very painful, but I love finding a different way to express something, or I love having a bit of time to think about stuff and link them together and just try and express things a little differently to other ways that you would take it in or read it. And that's what I love.
And so I guess if we talk about kind of the written word more broadly, and this applies to things well beyond sport as well, obviously we're in a day and age where, and you touched on some of it yourself, whether it's podcasts, but there's it's YouTube content, there's live streams of all sorts, there's televised coverage, all that sort of stuff. So many different ways for people and social media, I should say as well. So many different ways to deliver a message. The written word in that landscape, I guess, how do you kind of see the place for it going forward? Because it still exists, and obviously the papers are still there, and there's plenty of outlets, including Triple M, that still have written content that appears on their website and whatnot as well. But obviously, I guess the significance of it in the landscape has maybe diminished a little bit. How do you see things trending going forward? And I guess, do you feel like there's always going to be a place for some kind of written word media out there for people to consume?
Yeah, I do think that there'll always be things for people to consume. Like I know I'll never stop consuming written content, and I reckon sort of everyone's the same. It just becomes more about how you package it up and who your audience is and what you what you need to try and say. Like I do. Look, I always think there'll be that kind of stuff. You just got to be smart about how you package it, really. Like I reckon a lot of people these days, there'd be quite a few people these days who the longest thing they read is probably when sometimes like the Batuta Advocate will do one of those really long headlines, and that'll be about it. But if that's the case, you still got to get that across, and the written word it's not just like 600 words on the page in paragraphs. It's infographics that you see on Instagram. It's like written speeches off the top of a YouTube video, or a script to read in a podcast or whatever. Like it's all of it's writing, all of it's written, all of it's the written word, and it will always endure. Like someone who can express themselves with their words will always be someone who's got a bit of a leg up in that sense, in that like people will want to listen to them because they can express themselves so well. Think about like still to this day when you hear a really well told story, no matter what medium it's in, it's always just gets you a little bit more excited. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely,
and it's part of the craft. If you've ever been to a sportsman's night, you hear these stories and you go like, this guy's just like crafted that over time, and that's in a way the written word. Like he'll have that written down somewhere, and that's I think it's still at the crux of all the media. Like it's still all the media stuff that anyone does. I still think at the end of the day, the written word is like the most.
It's what
powerful.
Underpins it all.
Yeah, it just may not always be. Your legacy style. Long pieces in the Sydney Morning Herald or the Guardian's Communist Free section or anything like that. Those will endure, but I think that it just underpins everything everyone does.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, even think about us chatting tonight, and I've got 2 different sets of notes here, my handwritten stuff that I've got here, and they're always kind of my beats that I can refer back to, as well as some specific beats that I want to hit for you as well as we're going through this. And these things don't just happen. As much as I want to be able to think I could just wheel it out off the top of my head, and we all want to be able to do that. And certainly when you think about some of these, Sportsman's Nights or whatever the case happens to be, and it's this well-crafted story, it feels like the person's just wheeling it out. But to your exact point, they've been there, they've done it. They've also probably had lots of opportunities to tell this story, but even then, it started with something written, and it's been refined, and there's been feedback. They've worked with that feedback, adapted, tweaked, etc.
Absolutely.
But to that point about the written word, you've over the journey done a bit of it beyond the bounds of all things Triple M as well, with the Greenfield Post. You've got your own medium there, where you're doing match reviews as well. Now, obviously, maintaining that can be, especially given the role you've got, can be a bit of a challenge. But I guess always good to scratch that handwritten word itch.
Oh yeah,
word
big
itch,
time.
I should say.
Yeah, big time. I really enjoyed the article stuff, like the blog stuff. It got too big on me last year. I think it was like sort of midway through the year. I was doing a bit of job share covering stuff with one of the guys away, and it became too big to keep up with. So I do apologize to any of my fans out there. But I just wanted to be getting my thoughts down somewhere that gave you a bit more space to free the arms up, I suppose, than Twitter at that point. And, I'm happy to be on, I'm happy to say what I think on Twitter, as I'm sure anyone who follows me gets the real unfiltered access. But to be able to, as I said before, to be able to express myself a bit more clearly and a bit more with a bit more character and a bit more, be a bit more florid, just have like play some shots. It just made it. It was really nice and like almost not quite freeing is probably not the right word, but it made me feel really connected to that season where I did it every week. And then we won the flag. So that really helped big time. But it also was just like I found, a little group of Cats fans who seem to really connect with it, who seem to quite enjoy it as well. And I'm tossing up whether or not to do it this year. I think maybe not with what's going on. But yeah, it was a really fun thing to do. And I just wanted to a bit more space to play in, I suppose.
No, all credit to you for doing it. And I'll note for everyone, there's been some wonderful Grind Myers related little memes and goal assist ones that you've been using on social media over the journey. Well, if anyone checks out Rudi's medium space there's a whole bunch of them in the most recent post, which as I double checked the whole thing, that was it was round 12. But okay. Some high quality stuff that's in there across the board. So if you do find yourself the time and the opportunity to go back and kind of whether the model gets tweaked a little bit, the scale maybe dials back a bit, given all the various responsibilities that are coming your way. Maybe that gets tweaked, but people should absolutely keep their eyes out for it if it returns for season 2024 and beyond.
On the subject of Grind Myers, that was very personally gratifying, seeing him sort of go from a bit of a whipping boy to someone that everyone realised actually is pretty bloody good at footy over the last year. It was really nice. The Grind Myers for All Australian stuff towards the end of the season was I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, certainly Ben's probably sick of me doing it, but I claim a lot of credit for Grind over the course of last year. He was the first guest we had at the beginning of last season. We had a big conversation about his work on the short kicking, and that was kind of his flaw. Because of his unique technique, it then made it harder for him to deliver the short pass. Spend that whole preseason working on it. We came and spoke about it. He had a breakout season. We claim him on the Hoops crew as a result. But it was that sort of BS aside, it was a wonderful season from him, and certainly provided a lot of great material for everyone as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just he's actually it was quite a pleasure to watch, because he was the kind of guy you could always sort of see it. And I think that might have been partially why he became a whipping boy, was because I think that without necessarily realizing it, I reckon people sort of wanted a bit more than what they felt they were getting out of Grime a bit, because you sort of knew when it did when a kick, when he would bite off a kick and it would come off, it would be like, this guy looks like like he looks like such a pure footy player, but then he's got the weird kicking style and he's got the dreadlocks, and his name is Brian. So people, he just became a bit of a meme, really. But
people go after things that are different, unfortunately.
Yeah, but he always just had a bit. He had more, and I think it was also just so tantalizing that you could tell that he had a little bit more to offer. And it was it's been really cool to watch that come through.
Well, certainly, and admittedly, the kicking technique is a point of difference, but I certainly draw a lot of parallels with him and Stevie J even back in the day. Like, he was maligned early on because he would try and pull off passes or shots on goal that seemed ridiculous, and every now and then would work because it was Stevie J, but in that early days, he was still kind of refining his craft. They weren't, and people came for him at different points. And we know the story about him potentially, even moving. I think it was to the Pies, if I recall. There was a conversation. And so, people weren't thrilled. People were quick to throw him out, but then all of a sudden, when everything starts to click, everyone jumps back on the bandwagon. So
it's just There's a fine line between insanity and genius.
Well, yeah, there's that too. So I guess the full-time professional side, we touched on loosely some of the Triple M work there, but you've been with the team for many years at this point, and a range of different responsibilities. You obviously mentioned the digital content creator thing, which is, I think a lot of people will go, oh, it's YouTube and those things. But to your exact point before, there is so many different layers to that. And so many different platforms. And so what was that like early days, especially, and I guess as time progresses with more platforms coming into the mix, you think, modern day sort of things where TikTok's starting to creep in, and, it's trying to find different ways to engage audiences at their point of need, I guess. What has it been like over the years?
Well, yeah, like I said, it was very much like almost like mini blogging early on. I would go in and, you'd write 7 short articles about something, the crazy thing that just happened at halftime of the footy or whatever. And you'd post that and people would read it. And then it became so much about, trying to have people like click through and then like listen to a piece of audio. And then it became about Instagram and like how we can stand out and look a bit different there. And then it became about video, and YouTube's becoming a big thing. And you mentioned TikTok, and it's all just about trying to like stay on the cutting edge of that curve and try and but yeah, like you said, really just
meet people where they are.
Hit people where they are, find out what people like and keep doing that until they stop liking it, and then try and find another way. But the real hard part is staying just in front of where, it's kind of easy to trail behind, to be in the slipstream and pivoting, after it changes. But the real difficult one is pivoting as it changes. Before it changes. Yeah, which is, you're in the content creation game, so you know exactly how hard that actually is.
It's not easy. And
it's really cool. It's like, it can be tiring, obviously, because all that all that kind of stuff is, but it's great. Like I get to go to work and be creative, and that's the dream in so many ways. And I just love it. Like I love media in all its forms, and I love creating media in all its forms. And it's just it was cool to me to be just trying to find out new stuff to do and new ways to do it.
I mean, obviously, you touched on kind of the tiring component. I'm sure there are points with so many new platforms that emerge and new ways that people want to receive their information. I'm sure at different points there's probably a little bit in the back of the mind going, can we just can you just stick to something, please? Just give me a little while so I can really kind of refine and master the craft. But then you're always kind of moving on to a new mode of delivery.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the thing is that you can sort of go, you can fall into that trap, being like, oh, can't we just take a minute and just enjoy one thing for a little while? But then again, like I think back to the way I consume stuff, and it's always changing as well. So I kind of have to, you kind of have to stop every now and then, and stop yourself from feeling like that, jaded by it, and go, this is what it's about. This is what media is. It's it's all changing landscapes all the time,
constantly evolving.
And, absolutely. It's
that
wouldn't have it any other
adapt
way.
And pivot, like you said.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's great.
And so I guess over the journey, you've been able to also work with some wonderfully talented people that have been kind of associated with the game for many years. That you would have been able to watch on TV when you were younger, performing as well. Obviously, plenty of work with like JB and Bill, and heaps of amazing people have come through the team as well. What has that been like to be able to kind of, I guess, meet people who would have been potentially footy idols back in the day, but now that your mates and their colleagues, and you get to chat with them in a whole range of different contexts?
Oh man, that's been another super duper cool part of the job. I remember, like going in there the first time, and like Billy Brown was like he was wandering around the corridors, and I was just like, oh, bloody, that's the King of Geelong, and just since then it's just been you get used to it in a sense where it's like, are you going to office? It's like, oh, Cam Zerha's in office today, and and then that kind of thing. But then every now and then I still like the first time I got excited because I was like, oh man, there's a cool guest coming in. It was Daniel Menzel. Back I think it was 2016. I think he'd sort of like come back into the side, and was he was through the knee injuries and stuff, and I just was like, he was like, when he came into the team, I remember he was like my guy early on. And then I'll,
did the same
knee
actually.
Injuries knee injuries and stuff the whole way through. And it was when he came in, I was like, man, Daniel Mintz, like this is going to keep happening to me, where like people that I admire and have watched play footy are going to be like around. And I was like, that's going to be cool. And tried to remember to like keep that, vibe, and just be like thrilled with that. We had Joel Selwood in last year around the time of his book launch, and that was like, that was pretty cool. But this is not a footy thing, but the one that still working on the cricket with Triple M, the one that's still like, I'm still, every time I see him, I'm like, oh my god, is Ricky Ponting. You just see him, like you'll be at the MCG working on the test, and Ricky Ponting will be walking around chatting to people, and you're like, it's 41 test centuries, and it's like, I think you'll just always have those guys that you're starstruck by, and that's cool. And then it's cool to get to know these people and like be in their world a bit. Like obviously I'm not in their world as such, but like peripheral to their world and work with them. And it's Bill was a guy who obviously he was, like I said, the King of Geelong. I was, I think, 8 years old when he kicked that goal against the Dogs, and it was, he was like God to me at that point. God's right hand man, I suppose.
Considering God was playing in the full forward position.
He was God's decoy. And then he had the whole larger than life career with the Footy Show and the Brush Hour and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, every now and then you've got to, it's just like it's just been another really cool thing. Like I'm so blessed in this job, and it's you can lose perspective on that sometimes, but you do bring yourself back by just going, oh, hang on a second, like you could still be selling slabs of beer to people, but instead you're basically like hanging out with Billy Brownless during the week. So it's a really, really cool thing, man. It's a really cool thing.
And so how do you go when friends, family, whatever, people who aren't in kind of similar sort of positions ask you questions about this lifestyle that you get to lead? I mean, you tell me these stories, and like I kind of have similar and equivalent sort of experiences. Even getting to chat to you today, I'm like, okay, like I get it. People in the industry, and I've started to learn to do that, and so I guess you start to get a little less. And I don't mean this in like this. You start to get a little less starstruck because you start to kind of
it becomes your job,
comfortable with it.
So much, yeah.
But when you're talking to others who don't lead that lifestyle or anything even potentially close to it, how do you kind of explain it to them?
Well, they mostly want to know what they just want to know what these guys are like. Are they like they are when I see them on TV in the office?
Is persona real?
Or are they or are how real is that? Or and then other times they want to be like, so who is they'll be like, do you know that Todd from Barwon Head guys that calls up Billy? Like, what's that about and stuff like that. So they just want to know, the behind the scenes stuff really. And it's just like, you just say to them like, look, they're people. They're all people and stuff like that. They've got their own, they've just got their own personalities and stuff. They're all, everyone's great. And that's what I say to them. I'm like, it's a great job. I've got great people, and you get to do. You get to do like that kind of cool, interesting stuff. What I always say to people is, I'm like, I can't complain about having worked for so long in a job where I get to like watch and talk about footy.
It kind of helps, right? It's a pretty good lifestyle to lead. And that, I guess leads up to, I think about, I guess kind of honing in on the Cats side of things a little bit more specifically again, the 2022 Premiership, you being a part of this industry, being involved in it. What was that day like for you?
Well, yes, that day, as I said, partner, massive Sydney fan. So they and from a massive Sydney fan family as well, they went to the game, and all sat at the end, to which Sydney kicked 1 goal for the day. So right. the end that they were kicking to in the first and third quarters. So I helped out with some of the digital stuff around the live site of the morning, and then left for midday, and I went to a mate's place, and I tried deliberately to. He's a guy who's not like a massive footy fan, and I was just like, I want to be somewhere where there's not going to be people like barracking against Geelong.
Yeah.
Because I just need to. Yeah, I need this to be a safe space, because I was like, if we, because I don't know about you, but I'd felt like in 2021, arguably even 2020 after we lost to Richmond in the grand final, but 2021 when Melbourne just took us to absolutely took us apart in the prelim, I was like, it's not like this it's over for this group. Unfortunately, I've had the chance, couldn't quite get there, and I was like, that really stings, because a bunch of guys who mostly felt for Patrick Dangerfield at that point, because I was like, we'd done everything we could really to get in there, couldn't quite, and obviously I want Joel to win one as skipper, and I want Hawkins to get another one, and all the guys,
there's almost a story for every single one of the 22.
Yeah, Cam Guthrie.
Like, I want one for this guy.
Yeah, Cam Guthrie's another good example. Like, Mitch Duncan, his peer, really already had one. He didn't. Anyway, but so I was like, I need to be, I think I'll be a bit of a mess if we lose. And then, so I went to my mate's place, and a few other guys were there who were, in similar sort of boats. Not a couple of guys who were like massive footy people, mostly not so much. And then I just enjoyed the day, and I have very like sort of performatively in 2007 I was like, this is Geelong. We always lose when it really matters. I've seen us lose so many grand finals. And so I was like, I won't get excited until we're winning by 100 points. And then we were, and I was like, okay, well, looks like we're going to win this. But then I made the decision. I was like, I'd obviously run through every single scenario that could possibly happen.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
Natural. Ahead of 2022. And I was like, and I said to myself, I'm like, if we get to a point where we're clearly going to win, like, I was like, I'm just going to go out of my way to enjoy it. I'd made that conscious decision that, to like be realistic with myself. I said to myself, like, you've watched so much footy over the years now, like professionally and not professionally. And I was like, when a team's won a game, especially in a grand final, like a good team you're not going to give up a 55-point lead in a grand final because you're a grand final team. And I said to myself, just if that comes, enjoy it. And that's what happened. It was the, what was the order of goals? It was before, so the Isaac Smith goal in the third quarter, when you can tell the guys know they've won, they were jumping on them. It was the one before that. I think it was, I can't remember which order it was, but Mitch Duncan kicked one, Brad Close kicked one. Mitch Duncan ran down maybe Tom McCartan holding the ball, and then Tom McCartan kicked across the face of goals, and Brad Close took the mark, kick goal. I can't remember, but it was the middle one of those. It was the second goal in the third quarter. We went, I think, 48 or 54 points up, and I was like, oh my God, we've won the flag. And at that point, I was like, I just basked in it. I was like, the nerves were all gone, and I was like, this is going to be the sweetest hour of footy ever. Just knowing that it's in the bag, and like all that had all that work that had gone into it, and like the connection that I'd felt to it, as I said before, with the blog over the course of the year, and like writing the whole thing, and I was just like, man, this is going to be just the best. And then, but like story after story kind of got ticked off down the line. Like Parfitt came on and kicked the goal.
Sam DeConey increased from fullback to
Dangerfield handed off to Jeremy Cameron. Cameron kicks the last goal and does the beer, but then obviously the Joel moment is like,
which for anyone who's listening only to the podcast version today, that is Rudy's background right now. It's just the aftermath there as Dage just picking him up by the back of his jumper.
Yeah, it's as you can sort of see Danger and so they're both watching it. You can tell they're both watching it fly through, and it's like, it's just that moment where it's just kind of like pure enjoyment, ecstasy. Everything's just perfect. Everything's perfect.
It still gets me today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same here. Everything about it. It's so good. I watched the Joel goals kind of thing. It comes up on social media every now and then, and you're like, yes, I will watch that. Yes, I will watch that over and over. And yeah, that was kind of my experience of the day. I just had told myself, like, enjoy it if we're going to win by heaps. And then it happened like that, and it was like so perfect, man. I've still only probably watched the game back like 3 or 4 more times. Like the other grand finals I've thrashed. Like
of course, we've had plenty of time to do it too, though.
Yeah, but this one not as much, because it was just such a good experience in the day. I don't feel necessarily like I need to. The one I'd go back and watch again before the grand final more regularly, I reckon, it's a Collingwood game, because in a way that was our
grand final again. Feels like 2007 in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of like when we won that night, like I didn't let myself believe it at the time, but in retrospect now, it's like pretty clear we're going to win the flag from there, because that so many times, and I've spoken about it like so many times. Like, how many first finals have they blown, over the journey, where they've just been like absolutely blitzed off the park by a team that's just goes, we've watched Geelong play these games before. We know all we really need to do is just like blast them off the park. They can't
bring the intensity straight out the gate, and they fold.
And we weathered that against Collingwood, turned the game around. Still one of the most like highly skilled games of footy I've ever watched. Like the standard of football in that game is ridiculous. And then I'm spoke before about Brian Myers and how gratifying it was watching him come so good this year. Gary Rowan's another one. He's a guy I've done a lot of defending of over the journey, because he's the kind of guy who's an easy target, with these stats and figures and finals and stuff like that. So, it's kind of like that Simpsons joke. You've got to look at the touches he's not getting. But for him to go and smash that pack, take that like Wayne Carey style mark, and then kick the goal from 50, it was that was another one that was pretty gratifying moment. But that was so much more. There was so much the moment in that moment. There was so much the game in that year that really that's the one I'd probably look back on almost more fondly than the grand final. I was in a pub with my closest Geelong mate, and we just I remember like sitting down at the table we were at straight after, and it's being like, what just happened? So that's almost sorry to hijack the grand final.
No, you're right though.
The Pies game, but
it was a massive whirlwind. And I guess my experiences differ a little bit. So at that point, last year, my kid, I've got 2 kids. They were 4 and 2, or going on 4 and 2 at that particular point in time. So, and I live about an hour out of the city, or Geelong or Melbourne. So, it's not necessarily the easiest of commutes, especially when you've got kids of that age. So I'd basically kind of made the call early in the season. I'm banking credits here. And then when September rolls along, no matter how many weeks it goes for, I'm there for every single game. So to make my first game of the year in the end, just despite loving it, like soaking up every moment, watching every game on the TV, consuming every piece of media, talking with anyone and everyone, my first game for the year was that final, the Collingwood one. Oh. And so just to, and this, like I used to go to every single game on an MCC member, so I'd always, maximize the value for that. So to kind of be so almost caged in for the entire season. I don't want to, my wife's hopefully not listening to this when I say now that she's like caging me in. But like kind of, having to contain myself, keep everything in check, and then just have this huge moment with that final. And then it did feel like a bit like what you're saying. Felt like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, we're gonna do this from here. Yeah.
But the challenge was kind of separating. Hang on, is this the jubilation from the game, or is this a bit of jubilation? Holy shit, I'm back at footy again. I got to see that for my first game back for the season. So
can I ask? Can I ask? That game made me a convert to the Twilight Grand Final, because the theatre of the game going from starting in the daytime. Yeah, and then gradually becoming a night game, and then the denouement of the game with with Holmes kicking the winner right in front of the crowd in the dark was it made for whatever reason, it made the theater of the game just so much more marked to me. It feels so much more vivid, the first bounce into that last bit, and then the dusk is falling as Ash Johnson and Jeremy Cameron trade those goals from the boundary, and it's just kind of it was for whatever for whatever reason, it just it imprinted on my brain in that Twilight fashion, and now I'm just all I can think about is how good the grand final would look. And I was such a traditionalist about it. I was always no, I don't want the night game. I know it'll come, but let's keep the day game for as long as we can. After that game, I was Twilight all the way.
Yeah, it's the sweet spot. I think that was a pretty, and I'm a lot like you, traditionalist in a whole lot of different ways. But I did kind of start to change my stance a little bit there, and I did like some of the theatrics of what we saw in Perth and Brisbane with the grand finals. I didn't want it necessarily to be nighttime, but I really liked. You could see if this is the path we're going down, you could see how it would work. But then to see, to have that game, that was kind of proof to me that it's actually Twilight that is the sweet spot.
Yeah, good. So I'm glad to know I'm not my own with that, because it was, it was. I was astounded myself in how much I came to that conclusion afterwards.
And to be fair, even 2 weeks later with the Pies and the Swans in the prelim, it was similar. I think it was the same sort of time slot, and again, really climactic finale. So it's nice that the Pies lost in both instances, but the theatrics around that whole thing, and starting in day, ending in night. It's it's not too cold, so that that doesn't kind of impact in that sort of sense. But it's just the theatrics around the whole thing. It's unreal. I think kind of the combination of those two games, and again, perk being that Pies lost both times. I think really adds to, I guess, an argument for that particular time slot.
Yeah,
you can get a really tense game. I imagine Geelong and St Kilda in that time slot, the 09 grand final in that slot.
Even the 2023 one, the Collingwood Brisbane game, if that game finishes at night time, where that steel side bottom set shot from 180 meters out, sailing through, be incredible.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing. So certainly, the conversations will continue to go on. They do every year. Be interesting to see where things land, I guess, at the end of the day. As we start to wind things down a little bit, some kind of, I guess, top level, larger sort of questions there. In your eyes, and you've had the opportunity to chat with some of these people over the journey as well, who is the greatest cat of all time? And I do say greatest, not necessarily best, but greatest.
The greatest, the fact that you add greatest to it and not best actually makes the decision it makes the decision a lot easier for me. Without question, it's Joel.
He's in the background, right?
Yeah, he's in the background. That's right. He is just
Paddy
Dangerfield.
Sorry, Paddy.
No, I've got a lot of love for Paddy, but no, Joel Selwood is he just is. He embodied everything that made the Cats the team that they were over that journey. There's not a coincidence that whole entire period of perennial contending was coincided with his whole career. It was from day one, everyone knew this guy will be, a captain of Geelong. No one knew how good he'd actually, no one knew how good he'd actually beat it. And he was, he was probably only the best Cats, only the best player in the Cats side for probably maybe 3 seasons, two or three seasons. But he was the beating heart of Geelong in so many ways. And he just refused to settle for, refused to settle for, we can't win the flag this year. We'll finish ninth and get a better pick, and that his DNA ran through the whole entire club the whole time he was there. Just an incredible leader, an incredible player. I think people sort of forget because he played with, Ablett Jr., Dangerfield,
Bartel,
Hawkins,
Hawkins.
Bartel, Steve Johnson, Paul Chapman, because he played with these like ultra talented guys who were just like, like shining supernovas, and he was very much, just the unfashionable, like hard work.
The workhorse.
Yeah, people forget how good he actually was at footy. The moment in his career that sticks out for me is he kicked a goal in the 2009 grand final, where he sort of like shrugged off an opposition tackle, like ran through 50 and kicked it on the run. And it was just like such a massive team lifting moment. And he's 20 years old or 21. And it was that that was just like what he did his whole career, where he'd find a way to do something that just like, he was so much like the rising tide that lifted all the ships, like everyone walked taller. He just raised the floor of the team up, like by himself, just by his presence and existence in the side. And look, we saw it not even so much in the leadership vacuum he left, but like the actual midfield role that we missed of his last season. There was a gaping clear problem for the club all year. I just missed him so much. And it's, he just is Geelong in so many ways. I like he's the guy that I say to my kids, like I saw his whole career.
It's a pretty cool thing to be able to say.
He was as good as as they say he was. He was that good. He did make everyone walk tall. He was the reason Geelong was so good for so long.
And it is, so you make that point there, there was probably only 2 or 3 years where you could, probably quite definitively say he's the best player at the club. But even in those years where he wasn't, say after Paddy had arrived or whatever, you still knew that like when it came to the pinch, he may not have been the best player on the field, but in those moments when you needed him, he was absolutely the best player on the field. He would always, and it wasn't just that intensity and that leadership, but it was it just felt like the skill level just ratcheted up a few notches. He took it to 11 in every single aspect of his game, and would absolutely outstrip everyone at that particular point. It didn't matter that he wasn't necessarily the most skillful. He would play a better game than anyone at that particular stage of the game. Yes,
that's exactly right. He just was he was just the epitome. He was the epitome of Geelong over those years, and you can tell, the way Chris Scott talks about him with so much affection. You can tell he must have been such a joy to have as a coach. For him to be your captain when you're a coach, because it's just, the message will get through. And if you and him are on the same page, everyone's on the same page. Like everyone just fell in line. Sure. There was there was no elements of pushback or anything like that. It was just everyone, the whole ship rode in the same direction.
It's a pretty incredible sort of thing. He played every moment like it was red time, really.
Oh yeah.
Schoolyard pick. You've got Gary Jr. and Gary Sr. standing in front of you. You're building your own team. Which way are you going to
go? See, I've been strong on Gary Jr. for a long time on this. I think that the level to which he got was the level to which his father could not have ever gotten, because he just wasn't. He didn't have the same, like the one skill set. Gary Ablett Sr. was probably better than Gary Ablett Jr. at most things at footy, but the one thing that he didn't have over Gaz Jr. was the professionalism aspect. And I think knowing that you'll get knowing that you'll get like a super high standard out of Gaz Jr. every time you ask him to play, I think that's what gets him over the line to me. In that sense, I've never seen a player with a lowest standard, if that makes sense. I've never seen a higher floor than.
No, I absolutely know what you mean. Yeah, like the ceiling for Senior might have been way higher, but that lowest level,
the floor there was no one's ever had a higher floor in footy that I can ever remember.
It's kind of unreal, and totally understand the pick. Of the current group of players, I guess who's the one that you've always got the closest eye out for, that you just that little bit of extra man love for?
All right, do you mean aside from Brian? Because we've already
I guess we can continue to wax about Brian if you like.
I guess I won't go with any of the more obvious ones. Brad Close is one. Like he was, now having watched him a bit, I think he's always doing something good. Brad Close. It feels like to me whenever he gets the footy, the next thing is going to be something like excellent to the, like he's always going to make a good decision, make a good play. And I think that's he's a special one up there. Tyson Stengel's another one I've got a lot of love for. I always love when, a good story like that. When something that's like I've always thought was really special about sport is when you see those guys who have kind of lost their way a little bit, but like find, redemption, and like not even just redemption, but like, a more stable lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I'm, I'm sounding a bit paternalistic and patronizing, so I'm sorry, Tyson, but I just to see him come from, the wilderness to a 50-goal All Australian Premiership season was super, super cool. And I'm really proud of him for that. And then the other one who I'm really keen to watch develop is Oisin Mullen, the young Irish guy.
Yes.
He looks like he could be absolutely anything, and I'm keen to see what it is. Hopefully it's really good, and hopefully he's not back in was he from Mayo? Hopefully he's not.
Yeah, I think
Cork.
Mayo.
Yeah, but hopefully he's not back in Ireland playing GAA in 2027 or wherever. Hopefully he's still at Cardinia Park doing cool stuff.
Feels like he's gotten the bug and is keen to stick around. Hopefully that remains the case, though. You've kind of potentially half answered my next question here as well, but I guess of that next group that's coming through, similar sort of question: who do you have your close eye on? Is it Oisin, or are there some others there that you've really got a good feeling about in terms of potentially even breaking through this season?
Oisin is definitely one of them. It's almost a bit more speculative with him. If I had to pick someone more likely, I think this could be Tanner Bruin's year. He looked. There was glimpses last year where he looked like ultra impactful, and there was times where you'd have a quarter where you go, oh, okay, you can see why GWS spent pick 12 on him when they did, and then there was other times where he'd just be, he wouldn't get near
Couldn't
it.
find it, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that if he can sort of get to a level of consistency with, I couldn't tell if he was not fit or if it was just like he couldn't find a way to impress himself, impact himself upon the game. But I think if he can get to a point where he contributes regularly, I think he could be the guy who is, he's the guy that could take us to the next level because he's got a lot about him. I reckon he's got
absolutely
skilled in it, and he's got a bit of a burst.
No, in those moments, and it's a big comparison given everything we've just said, but like in those moments where that quarter or that explosive 10 minutes or whatever it happened to be, you would see signs of kind of Joel in it, because there was the tenacity at the ball and just complete unwavering intent. But then defensively would commit himself in just the same way. The tackling pressure's always kind of being there from out the gate. But when the other part of the game clicks at the same time, you just go, this guy can do anything.
Yeah. I'm
but
hoping
not like in the flashy sort of crazy way, but just there's nothing that he can't do out here. So and if he has half the career as Joel, then we've done pretty well.
Maybe he has a quarter of the career as Joel. He's someone I got my eye on. I'm keen. It's not just that. I think he will. It's more like we kind of need him to this year as well.
Well, there's that too. Yeah. We are recording this in a little bit of a vacuum, but the outlook for 2024, how are you feeling about the Cats this year? We know that 2023 was pretty severely impacted by injuries and form and those sorts of things. How's this year shaped in your eyes?
Look, it's hard to say. I think that I think last year was about as poor as we could go almost, if that makes sense. So I think that will be better next year. I don't know how much better, and a lot of that will have to do. Basically, we need at least a couple of guys to step up in that midfield and just like contribute every week. We know what Tomac can do, and what he can do is about what he does. We just need guys who have a bit of natural growth in them. Tanner Bruin's one of them, as I said, and we probably need a full year out of Cam Guthrie. I'm keen to see what Jai Clark is like once he can get on the deck. And if those, if a couple of those guys are, even B+ level mids in 2024, I think we'll probably be back in the finals.
whilst also hopefully maintaining the full bill, very close to a full bill of health, because I think that was another major problem for us over the course of the year. Not because there was necessary, ACLs, and touch wood, we don't want any of those this year either. But it was just, and I think Mitch Duncan really emblemised it a bit last year, where he's such a poise, delivery related, associated player, and he'd spend 3 or 4 weeks in, then he'd miss 2. And because of the sort of game he plays, he relies on that skill and that consistency and being able to, square it up. And, he'd come back after that injury, small one, but it means you're a little bit dusty and you take a week or 2 to get yourself back up to speed and get that, real pinpoint accuracy going again, and just start to develop, and then boom, he's out again. Like it felt like there was always something knocking him over or someone else, and then all of a sudden you get the Friday of life when Mark Blitzard, who seems completely untouchable and impossible to get injured, and he tweaked his hamstring of all things. You go, oh my god! Like it just felt like injuries kind of surmised the year.
Yep, and then it's like also it's Jeremy Cameron missing chunks, Tyson Stengel with a broken arm, and a few guys who hopefully after an off season where they haven't enjoyed the fruits of a premiership, maybe come back and come back and really hit their straps and are fit and firing. So look, I'm pretty positive. It's kind of a weird spot to be in now, because it's kind of like I don't think we'll really challenge for a flag for a bit, but I just kind of want to enjoy the end of Tom Hawkins' career and see where Jeremy Cameron goes, and how good those guys can be. And then we'll reload and go for go back again and create another team soon. But I'm just kind of, to be honest, 2024 for me is just like seeing how much, like seeing the kind of records and stuff that Tom Hawkins can set. Like he should.
Well, that's the thing. He's got 2 milestones he can hit this year, and there's a whole bunch of others that are coming. So.
Yeah, and if he sticks around long enough, he could even go past Doug Wade for goals kicked for Geelong, which is pretty wild to imagine. And he's another guy who could really, if he has this year, I don't know, it'd be hard to see him playing in 2025, but if he has this year and has another really great season, like all of a sudden he's a guy who's all of a sudden in the conversation for, in the top 5 of all time for the Cats. And that's the kind of thing I'm just really keen to watch now that we've, got the flag and all that other stuff under the belt. It's kind of like, probably won't win a flag for a bit. So let's just enjoy, the stars.
The tail end of these careers.
Yeah. And Dangerfield as well is another example. Just, just keen to see what, this year looks like for him, and just hopefully enjoy a vintage performance or 2.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be a few of those over the journey. Again, touch wood, everyone stays fit. I guess a pillar that we've not necessarily spoken too much about, but through this kind of September, October, November period, we got a really good look at what's going on with the girls at the moment, and obviously a pretty significant crack at a premiership there that I think we were kind of robbed in a prelim there. But
that was a journey. That was a journey I very much just enjoyed, and we lost in that prelim, and it was like, they probably overachieved to get there. And I worked that grand final, and I don't reckon we could have beaten either side, so that's okay. I thought it was just really fun, to be honest.
Similar sort of idea though, the 2024 endeavour when we get there. How are you feeling about the girls and how they're travelling?
Yeah, I think that like I said, I think they overachieved to win those finals, but I think that around the same sort of, age profile, the boys overachieved to win a couple of finals, in the 04 and 05, not so much 05, only won one final that time, obviously. But they overachieved to win a couple of finals back then. So, and I reckon that maybe, it could be on the same path. It's a bit harder in the women's stuff, obviously, because it's just like powerhouse clubs. Like Brisbane.
Absolutely, they've been there from day dot. Yeah. They've just been able to really refine the craft, while others are starting to catch up. So, I'm certainly looking for something.
I'm excited to see what that looks like. I'm excited to see what that looks like, because that's kind of, in a way, what the Cats are doing in the AFLW is almost like not quite. I wouldn't say without precedent, but it's to be able to see a team that's just come from literally 0 to winning 2 finals like that is. I just can't wait to see where it goes, what it looks like next season.
And very nearly a third. So hopefully in 2024 we can go all the way. It feels like the talent's there, and as you say, it's just a matter of, I guess, application and maybe a little bit of luck along the way too.
Yeah.
Rudi, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show and to I guess learn about this journey. Congratulations on the upcoming children. Congratulations on the executive digital producer role at Triple M. You're kicking goals everywhere. Congratulations on all, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, mate, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If people want to, I guess, catch up with the day-to-day things that you're up to, we've obviously touched on social media. We've obviously got the platforms itself that we should probably shout out to. Where should people go?
Well, the beauty of being literally the only person in the world named Rudi Edsall is that that is a username that's available on all platforms. So on Twitter, I'm just Rudi Edsall. Instagram, Rudi Edsall. I think that's it. I've got a TikTok. I don't really maintain it. I've got a YouTube channel. Nothing to see there. So yeah, basically, if you really want the good stuff, you want me, catch me on Twitter.
Good. As I said, thank you so much for coming on board. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cats fans, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube, Behind the Play on podcast feeds, so you can get up to date with every episode that goes live. We've got heaps already recorded at this point, ready to start rolling out once the season gets going, including Rudi's. So go check all of those out. Rudi, again, thank you very much for coming aboard.
Thank you.
Cats fans, remain Geelong strong. We'll see you next time.